Keep moving your feet. So if you could all, in honor of my dad, if you can move your bodies a little bit, we're at the end here, stomp your feet. That was my dad's motto, keep moving your feet. And the poor man had 4 daughters, and he kept us going. There was wood to be chopped, there were weeds to be pulled, there was the lawn to be mowed, and then he bought a piece of property, and I had never, ever seen my father sit still. He was remodeling, he was welding, and on top of his job as a sales force. And every now and then we'd get a peek that we knew that he was a Marine, but he never talked about it. And he would do things like on Saturday, go to all our rooms and say we had to make our bed like a Marine. And we'd end up crying because we just wanted to play with our Barbies and we just wanted to play. And so my dad was just always on the go. And every now and then we'd get like a little tidbit about my dad. Like you knew something was kind of chasing him, but we didn't know what it was. And one day, my mom said, well, you know, your dad signed up for the Marines when he was 17. And somewhere between the sky and sea on the way to Vietnam, he turned 18. And so I learned that he had been in Vietnam, never talked about it. And when he came home from Vietnam, he carried with him, you know, the things they carry, but one of them was Agent Orange. And the Agent Orange crept into his body, and he had many trips to the VA to fight the cancer, but he kept moving his feet. And he didn't stop, and he started to become more and more aware and proud of being a Marine, thanks to the VA. He found his people. He didn't hide it from us anymore, and we kind of saw him evolve. And he got sicker and sicker, and he kept going. He kept battle. Semper Fi, keep the faith. And we watched him fight, you know, tumors and cancers. And no matter what, he'd get up on his tractor, even if he couldn't move his feet. You know, he just bypassed anything, the walker. He was up on the John Deere tractor, and he would move rocks, and he would cut down trees. And so he just kept going, 9 lives. And towards the end, the cancer had moved, and it got into his spine. And we're like, Dad, you know, you can rest now. And he's like, nope, got to keep going. And we'd get him out of the VA, we'd have picnics, and he'd want to keep going even though he was in excruciating pain. And it was finally one of the doctors at the VA that knew how to deal with these military men. He looked at my dad, and he said, Marine, at ease. And so we started on this trek to get him home to hospice. And these 4 daughters of his, you know, we knew that we had to do something for him. And so my mom and I waited with him for transport. We couldn't put him in his car. We couldn't get him home by vehicle, so we had to wait for transport to come. And it was these 2 men, these 2 EMTs, and they had both served in the military. And they said, the first thing they said to my dad is, thank you for serving. And they put him in the stretcher. And my dad said, I need to say thank you to everybody. So he went around and, you know, said to his nurses who had served, thank you for serving. Thank you for taking care of me. And they put him in the back of the ambulance, and my mom and I followed. And my sisters said, get in front of the ambulance if you can. And as we drove down their road, Olive Lane, we saw at the end of their cul-de-sac all these people. And they were family and friends and neighbors, and they lined the driveway. And they all had flags. And the paramedics stopped. They didn't go up the driveway. They stopped at the end, and they unloaded my dad. And he finally got this parade. He finally got these thank yous. And he went up the driveway, and everybody said, welcome home, welcome home. And at the top of the driveway, he did this with his finger, and he said, one more time. And the paramedics brought him back down the driveway. And he got to see everybody, and it was like his own little personal ticker tape parade. And we got him to his recliner chair, and we put his feet up. And the day after the 4th of July, he stopped moving his feet. But the silver lining was he finally got that parade, and he finally got people saying thank you for your service.
All right, give it up for Carlin, everyone.